We are back now on Race for the White House, the back half. Good to have you here. I'm David Gregory. Governor Sarah Palin took questions from voters for the very first time last night at a town hall in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She emphasized her readiness for the White House.
Certainly, we'll be ready. I'll be ready. I have that confidence. I have that readiness. And if you want specifics with specific policy or countries, go ahead and you can ask me. You can even play Stump the Candidate if you want to. But we are ready to serve.
Joining me now to talk about the Palin factor, MSNBC political analyst Lawrence O'Donnell, Michael Smerconish, radio talk show host and columnist for both the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Daily News, and MSNBC political analyst and president of the Women's Forum, Michelle Bernard. Welcome all. Michelle, let's start with you. Stump the candidate. What do you make of it?
That's not a question I would be asking this early on into Sarah Palin's introduction to the public, particularly coming on the heels of the Charlie Gibson interview, which, you know, according to some people, didn't go as well as it could have possibly have gone. The interesting thing I thought about the town hall meeting last night, though, was that she threw that out there, but I didn't notice any questions that came her way where anyone tried to actually play Stump the Candidate last night. She is obviously a very charismatic figure.
Right.
The Republican Party is very energized by her, but it will be very interesting to see, again, what happens with the vice presidential debate coming up in a few weeks with Senator Biden.
Well, Lawrence, what matters? What matters? Stumping her at this point, getting her exact views on issues, testing what she actually knows? Or are there other leadership qualities that voters are trying to discern?
I don't think there's much chance of developing a sense of leadership qualities with Sarah Palin based on the polling that we're looking at today. There's a very, very small minority believe that she was chosen for her qualifications. In the New York Times poll, 17% say they think she was chosen for her qualifications. The rest think she was chosen for political reasons. And, you know, the Stump the Candidate thing happened at the very end of the program. There were no questions after that. So that, if you're going to say it, that is the safe time to say it, when you're just about to leave the stage. The amazing thing, David, is how much at this stage, according to the polling we're seeing now, how much Sarah Palin has not accomplished for the ticket, when you see that in the New York Times poll, the biggest change in voters was among white women, and that was a migration to Barack Obama. That was the biggest change in the poll.
Well, you set me up perfectly, because we've got some of that polling that we'll put up on the screen here. You look from August to September, what the numbers are now this is among all women. Barack Obama now 54-38, when back in August it was a lot tighter there, Smirk.
Well, here's what the intangible. What you don't see in those numbers are the effect that she's had on the base of the party. And by way of anecdotal evidence, David, I can tell you that tomorrow night the Republican State Committee here in this swing state of Pennsylvania will gather, and people are banging down the door to get into the event, whereas preceding the Sarah Palin nomination, they would have had difficulty selling tickets. I'm surprised that this protective nature of the rollout, that people are having such a high level of patience with it. I thought by now there'd be a hue and cry and more of a demand that she sit and answer a whole variety of questions like she did with Charlie Gibson. But I don't hear that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. If you look also, Michelle, compare this to the 2004 exit polls, and you look at the gender gap, which was actually very small. President Bush narrowed that considerably. It was Kerry 51-48 among women. Barack Obama has to create a big spread here. He needs a big gender gap because he's still so close on men, or he's going to fall behind on men to John McCain.
Absolutely. One of the things that we have always said, which is why I find the New York Times poll interesting, is that women are not a monolithic voting voting bloc, and there has been traditionally a gender gap in this country, but we saw George Bush shrink it. He in 2004, women, Democratic and Republican women, put George Bush back in office, and it was on matters of national security. One of the things that I think was important, if you look back in 2004, was the Belsen school massacre in Russia, when all of those children were basically murdered in that school in Russia. It was just a few months before our election, and I think that women really took a very close look at that. And what the key in this election for both Senator Obama and Senator McCain is to seize on the issues that matter to women in this electorate and really hit home. And I think in this election, it's going to be pocketbook issues. It's going to be the economy. It is a mistake to think that women will vote for Sarah Palin just because she is a woman, nor will they vote for Barack Obama. Just because he heads the Democratic ticket. Both of these campaigns are going to have to work very, very hard to demonstrate to American women, conservative and liberal women, that they have the right answers to make their lives better.
Just to give you another sense of Sarah Palin on the Stump last night at this town hall meeting, she was asked about the Title IX programs in our schools. Watch.
I'm a product of Title IX in our schools, where equal education and equal opportunities in sports really helped propel me into the position that I'm in today. Sports were very, very important to me growing up, just learning all about self-discipline and about healthy competition and about what it takes to win, and even how to graciously lose sometimes, but how to win. That's what it teaches you.
Lawrence, more generally, I mean, you have this picture of the two of them campaigning together, which is still striking because it's largely unprecedented to have them on the road most of the time. And so we can measure her effectiveness in terms of drawing crowds and on the base. But I'm struck by watching John McCain on the trail and reading those who are covering him day in and day out, taking note of the fact that Steve Schmidt, who was with the Bush campaign, seems to be bringing a certain level of discipline to both the campaign and the candidate. He's starting to get more like George W. Bush on the trail, and I mean that in a positive way in terms of having more message discipline and the like. But it is a striking contrast to the way we've seen McCain campaign in the past.
And it limits your capacities. When both candidates have to be in the same place at the same time in order for the show to work, that really cuts down by 50% the amount of territory you can cover in a day as the campaign. I hope Sarah Palin has a thank you note ready for Senator Ted Kennedy when she talks about Title IX. She doesn't have any Republicans to thank for that. And it's fascinating to see her out there campaigning in a way that doesn't really have a connection to any kind of governing philosophy on any given moment. They're non-interventionist, or they are interventionist, depending on what the business requirements are of that day in terms of the economy. But the Title IX thing for a Republican candidate on a Republican ticket is an unprecedented shout-out to Ted Kennedy.
It is interesting. Go ahead, Michelle.
Sorry,
go
David,
ahead.
I was just going to say, if I could just add quickly about Title IX, though, should Senator McCain be elected, one of the things that you would see many conservative women in particular looking at for this, quote-unquote reform ticket is for Title IX to be reformed. You will see many conservatives and many Republicans, particularly women, who say that the objectives of Title IX were wonderful, but one of the unintended consequences is that it has had a disproportionately negative impact on men in sports. And for those of us who are mothers like Sarah Palin, we want our daughters to be able to be active in sports and have an equal opportunity in education, but we want that for our sons also. And male sports have been cut all across the country as a result of the way Title IX has been interpreted.
Smirk, a comment here in general terms about Lawrence's point about whether there's a real governing philosophy that we're seeing. It's so difficult for these campaigns, both of the campaigns, in real time to respond to a financial crisis that is befalling Wall Street at the moment, and yet they are very much subject to kind of doing the play-by-play and some instant analysis on what the administration is trying to do.
My belief is that the issues that are confronting right now elected officials are beyond the grasp of most of the electorate. I'm certainly in that category. It's hard for me to follow what's going on no matter how much I read. I think what people are looking for is some comfort level that the individuals for whom they're about to vote, that they understand it and that they have a plan. And I think that the Republican side of the aisle has been shaky thus far. I noticed that John McCain seems to be more scripted, as I guess you made reference to, particularly on these issues. And I don't know that there's a comfort level there that is engendered by Sarah Palin when you're talking about the intricacies of Wall Street.